You are not the first assassin sent to kill me, and you will not be the last.
Hello everyone, my name is Deadlykin, and today I'm going to be showing you a little bit into the world that is Genji Dodgeball. I have a little over 1,000 hours playing this game, and I don't claim to be the best at Genji Dodgeball, or to know everything about Genji Dodgeball. But after 1,000 hours, hopefully I can provide some insight. Now this video is mostly intended for beginners, but as things move on, they will become more advanced and in-depth. So if you already have some good experience, stick around and maybe you'll learn something you didn't already know. The first thing I'd like to talk about in my guide video is the difference between the versions of Genji Dodgeball. There are two different versions in Genji Dodgeball, V1 and V7. V7 is the version that I play on and the version that the vast majority of the best players use. V1 is the most popular version among new players and is the one version that you will most likely find in the game browser. Key differences between the two versions. V1 has high movement speed and low gravity, while V7 has normal movement speed and gravity. In V1, the ball does not interact with the same barrier that players interact with when coming off the island. In V7, the ball interacts with the water, and the water is also stronger in pulling players back onto the island. In V7, there are jump pads that allow the players to play into the air, while in V1, there are no pads. What version should you play on, V1 or V7? And I think the answer to that question entirely depends on you and whatever you have more fun playing. I prefer V7, and I think it gives greater challenge and you'll become a better player if you learn from V7. However, that being said, there's no point if you're not having fun. So if you prefer playing V1, then that's entirely okay. Alright, when people first start playing Genji Dodgeball, they usually hit the ball straight, but I'm going to show you that you absolutely do not have to do that. So if you look here in this clip, I'm going to play this clip here. In this clip, you can see that I can hit the ball to the left, to the right, and I can even look behind me here. So you don't have to hit it straight. You can even look. I even look down and it bounces against the ground there. You absolutely do not have to look straight to hit the ball. You can look any direction. The ball will go any direction. And that's the basic concept of how you can control the ball to do it what you want it to do. To expand on the whole hitting the ball in different directions, you can also use this to control who you want to hit the ball to. For example, in this clip here, you can see that Mr. Flubber is in front of me here, and there's an opponent further away down there. And there's various reasons why you wouldn't want to hit the ball to a certain player. For example, I wouldn't really want to hit the ball to Flub here, personally, because Flub is very close, which means that the options he has to mess with me and do things that might kill me are kind of high. So I would rather hit it back to the other opponent. You can see the ball is going to spawn, it's going to hit him. You can see here in the clip that I can look away, and even though he's closer to me, I can look away and it doesn't go to him. So when you're in a situation where you don't want to hit it to someone, you can tell that you can kind of look away and it'll go to the other person. Number 1, don't panic. And what I mean by this is don't randomly dash when you lose the ball. What I see new players do when they lose the ball is randomly dash in some random direction, and this almost always gets them killed because 1, they lose their sense of direction of where the ball was, and 2, it causes the ball to become harder to hit. When you lose the ball, you should first deflect and then dash the ground to give yourself the best odds of hitting the ball. Number 2, save your dash. Dash is a vital tool for saving yourself and killing your opponents when you know how to. But regardless of whether you know how to do so, dashing the ball when it is unnecessary stuns you and leaves you vulnerable. Number 3. Don't dash over water. This coincides with the first tip, but this is 5 times worse. The water and edge are a Genji Ball player's worst nightmare, and doing this not only puts you near the demons, but leaves you without your most important tool, your dash. Don't do it unless you know what the hell you're doing. Number 4. Focus on tracking the ball. Keeping the ball on your screen not only helps you hit the ball, but also helps you understand ball physics, which translates to you improving more quickly. This is the most common tip given to new players from the veterans. Number 5. Consider upping your sensitivity. The ball, especially at higher speeds, just moves too quickly to keep it on your screen. Upping your sensitivity will help you track, and because of how Genji Ball is designed, perfect aim is just unnecessary. I use 2 different sensitivities depending on if I'm playing Genji Dodgeball or if I'm playing regular Overwatch. For regular Overwatch, I use somewhere between 3K to 4K EDPI, and for Genji Dodgeball, I use somewhere between 30K to 20K EDPI. If you don't know how to get EDPI, it's your in-game sense multiplied by your mouse DPI. Alright, for this section of the video, I'd like to talk about a technique that every single person who plays Genji Dodgeball will have to do constantly, almost 24/7. You will do this technique more than any other technique in the game, even more so than hitting the actual ball. It is that important. What is this technique? It is pre-deflecting. Pre-deflecting is a protective technique that protects you from straight beams, and I have a clip here that shows exactly me doing this technique to save myself. Watch what happens. Alright, in this clip, there's an orbit around Drex. I see this, and I'm not reacting to him hitting it straight at me. What I do is I pre-deflect at the perfect time that I know when he hits the ball, that if he hits it straight at me, I will have pre-deflect at the perfect time so that it goes straight back to him. And this is exactly what happens, is Drex gets to this orbit and he decides to target me. He looks at me on purpose, well, most likely on purpose, sometimes it's accidental. He looks at me and I'm ready with my pre-deflect. I'm not reacting to him looking at me or to this ball coming at me. I did this before he had even hit the ball. Now when you pre-deflect, you usually look back at your opponent because it's going to kill them because they don't have any abilities, and I'll explain later in other videos that this can be exploited. So, cautionary, but it doesn't really matter when you're beginning. But the idea is that if someone is close to you and the ball is going to hit them, you want to pre-deflect in case they beam at you. So this is a technique that is used constantly, because if you don't, you're gonna die. Okay, so from this point on, the video will be targeted towards intermediate to advanced players. Beginners can dabble in some of these concepts, but it will be difficult for a beginner to even attempt some of these techniques. However, a beginner should know and be aware of these techniques, and I have structured them so that the techniques are roughly ordered from easiest to hardest to achieve. A beginner can try and attempt to learn these concepts and work their way up over time, but this is where the real grind begins to hone your skills. I believe that there are 2 ways to win this game. You either outlive all of your opponents, or you kill all of your opponents. As such, these techniques exist to either serve one or both of those purposes to win, and I will identify them as so. Some of the techniques are not relevant in V1 since it does not have the jump pad or water physics, and I will also let you know when that is the case. The first technique is flank dash. To flank dash a ball, first find any ball that is heading straight or nearly straight to you. Second, dash to either the left or right side of the ball. Wait for the ball to get a certain distance from you before dashing. If you dash early or late, you will either hit the ball or die. You can theoretically dash on any side of the ball you wish, although this is mostly unnecessary and is entirely situational. For practice purposes, keep it to the left and right side of the ball, and then later add more unorthodox dashes, such as below and above the ball. Dashing too narrow causes the hitbox to collide with the ball, thus hitting it. Dashing too far out of the ball causes the ball to orbit instead. After dashing in the Goldilocks zone of the ball will now be behind you. Do a 180 to turn and look at the ball and time your hit. For beginners, use the spawn ball for practice. As soon as the ball spawns, dash directly to the left or right of the orb, turn around and hit the ball any direction you wish. Another thing some people misunderstand is that dashing too high with too much verticality also counts as dashing too far out from the ball. This will also cause an orbit. This move is useful for stopping a ball from having difficult pathing, as it forces the ball to chase you in an easy to hit manner. Alternatively, you can also use it to position yourself more favorably to either attack or defend against your opponent. For example, flank dashing to get yourself close to the pads, or flank dashing to be above your opponent. The next technique is E-dash. To E-dash, as the name implies, first deflect the ball, then immediately after dash. This is one quick, consecutive motion. This move should be intended to be directed at an opponent to kill them. E-dash is often a more secure way to beam an opponent, as it offers additional protection should they pre-deflect your beam back into you. You can aim the dash at them, so if they pre-deflect a beam back into you, your dash will hit the ball and kill them. Even if your dash doesn't immediately secure the kill, it will have given you a free shot at killing the opponent without having died to them pre-deflecting back into you. E-dash, although easy to use, is deceptively complicated as there are many interactions surrounding this move. These interactions are mainly being determined by how your opponent responds to the move. Some responses to this move include pre-deflecting away from the dash, E-dashing back, using pad, and etc. The next technique is wave dash. Wave dash is a move that involves you dashing into the water in the direction that the ball is going in order to easily hit the ball and quickly move you back onto the island. Although I believe this move can have potential to be useful, I very rarely see this move being used, and is the first move on this list that I don't believe you need to learn. To use this move, first find a ball that is going in a straight path towards you horizontally. Turn 180 degrees and look in the direction that the ball is going. Dash slightly downwards into the water, and at the end of the dash, deflect. The ball should hit, and you should then fly back up onto the island. This move has a variant that will be the first V7 exclusive move, and this variant is called Tom Jump. The move is exactly the same as wave dash, but instead at the end of the move, you purposely aim yourself to be slingshot above the jump pad, so you can use the jump pad immediately. A potential use for this move that I can think of that I don't think has been talked about or actively used is using this move to hit balls that are going to hit the water from above you. I would only use this move in this way if I was severely out of position and too far away from the jump pad with a high-speed ball that is going to hit the water. This forces the ball to make a more predictable path that helps avoid the buggy edge. Ghost Dash is next in line in our techniques. Ghost Dash is a move used to trick opponents into pre-deflecting at a poor time so you can then beam them for a free kill. To Ghost Dash, a certain criteria must be met. The first is to be near an opponent such as they are likely to pre-deflect. The second is to have a ball coming at you in a relatively straight path. If this criteria is met, you then wait as long as you can before you dash in the direction that the ball is going. The purpose in waiting is so that your opponent is more likely to be tricked into pre-deflecting. Next, after you dash, you immediately do a 180 to look directly at your opponent. At this point, you should be listening to see if they pre-deflect. If they did pre-deflect, beam the ball at them for a kill. If you don't hear or see them pre-deflect, then deflect the ball in any other favorable direction. This is not the only use the move has, however. Ghost Dash can also be used as a positional move. If a ball is going in a direction you wish to go, you can simply Ghost Dash to move yourself to a more favorable position. For example, a common tactic is to Ghost Dash a ball to get close to water, then throw the ball straight down into water. If an opponent is below you and they fail to react correctly to either a Ghost Dash or the water shot, they will die. Brad Dash is a move that kills your opponent by surprise beaming them while you are in the middle of an orbit. This move is more effective the more complex your orbit is and the more spontaneous your beam is. There's a criteria that needs to be met in order to Brad Dash. The first criteria is to have the ball orbiting you. The second criteria is to have an opponent that is close enough to you that reacting to a beam is difficult or impossible. To Brad Dash, you must dash into the ball's pathing. If you do this with an opponent directly in front of you, then reacting to it is difficult if they aren't expecting it. To start learning this technique, you can ignore trying to kill opponents with it and just practice trying to dash into the ball mid-orbit. While on the ground, you can dash to the ground as well to stop yourself in the ball's pathing. Ignoring practice though, I would not recommend using this move unless it is to kill someone, as the dash leaves you very vulnerable. Next up is Roqyo Dash. This move basically combos the jump pad and E-dash together to kill your opponent. In order to do this move, this criteria needs to be met first. The first is to be on the jump pad. The second is the ball must be moving quickly enough to jump over it using the pad. If the ball is too slow, the ball will just kill you instead. Just before the ball collides, you jump over it using the pad. This baits pre-deflect from nearby players. After this, you simply wait for the ball to come back around and E-dash them. Technically speaking, it's not always necessary to E-dash, and you can just beam them if they don't have their abilities in time, but the dash is extra protection in case they do have counterplay. After some deliberation, I decided that the next move I was going to include in my list here is a variant of this move, that move being KP Hop. This move is largely unknown, but is a cool concept that I thought I should include. KP Hop works exactly the same as Roqyo Dash, except instead of using the pad to jump over the ball, you use your second jump instead. It is rare that you'll come across a situation where this move can be consistently used, as the ball needs to be moving at pretty high speeds and in a straight path to jump over it. I believe that Roqyo Dash is a more reliable way to achieve this concept, because jumping over the ball using the pad is more reliable. I did try to attempt doing Roqyo Dashes in V1 just by double jumping over it. However, the balls seem to always collide with me, so the only way I see this working in V1 is by already being in the air, which would just make it a KP Hop. Next up on our list is the infamous Ace Read. In my opinion, the most downright disrespectful move on this list. Ace reading is the art of reading your opponents like a book, dashing directly into where you think they're going to hit the ball and beaming it straight back into their face for an easy kill. Well, easy might be an understatement, because in order for this move to work, you have to be quick and precise. The first thing to consider is that you have to be close enough to your opponent so your dash reaches them. After all, there's no point in beaming the ball back at your opponent if they have enough time to hit it again. Secondly, you have to do the reading part of this trick, which is the challenging part. There are two ways to read your opponent. The first is intuition. Basically, game knowledge where you realize that players in this position, at this skill level, often hit this way, or I have observed this opponent, and every time they dash this way, or at this position, they almost always hit it this way. An easy example I can give of this is that new players almost always hit the ball straight to someone rather than try to make it curve in orbit. In this case, new players are really easy to ace read. Just dash in front of them and deflect. With more experienced players, it starts to become more complicated more quickly because, unlike new players, experienced players hit the ball with a specific pathing inbound they want to cause. Now, the other way to achieve this read is to dash where they are looking, because the ball will always go directly where they look. This takes very fast reaction times and quick thinking because you only have so much time to do it. Now, you can't use this second method against experienced players often because experienced players won't usually look to where they want to hit the ball until the very last second. A disclaimer, this move is usually a very unreliable way to kill your opponent and can actually leave you really vulnerable if you use it recklessly. However, I would be lying if I said pulling it off isn't incredibly satisfying.